your pony knowledge by. Oh, better. I got a place where winning ain't tough to do. You wanna be cool, stable do. Your horse racing fantasy come true. But no, stable do.
Download the Stable Duel app and play today.
Huge weekend coming up. We're starting a little early this weekend on this Stable Duel live stream show. Big thanks to my buddy Matt DeSantis for helping me out with that. It was a little easier for my schedule if we went early. And this weekend, we didn't want to have a shorter show, or we didn't want to skimp at all, Matt, because we have a big card to talk about at Gulfstream Park. It is the Pegasus World Cup on Saturday. This is a day that they developed about 10 years ago or so, and it's now become a real big mainstay early on in the racing calendar. Now we have 3 Pegasus races on the Gulfstream Park card, and because of that, Stable Duel is going to have a huge contest, a big game on Saturday. So for Saturday at Gulfstream, 7 graded stakes races, 3 Pegasus races, 2 grade 1s. You've got huge rolling exotics all throughout, handicapping contests all over, the coast-to-coast pick 5 back and forth from Santa Anita and Gulfstream, and the big one, the $10,000 Stable Duel Pegasus World Cup Challenge. Matt, you had some good success in this game. Was it last year?
Yeah, last year. Yeah. Last year I entered 4 entries, $50 a piece. So spent $200 and won about 3,500, give or take.
That'll get the job done.
Hey, yeah, Matt, that'll do it.
Would you like this trade if I give you like about 400 and you give me 200 and you give me back 3,500? How would that deal be?
Yeah, no, it was good. And it's one of those things where in a 14 race card, it's so interesting. A lot of it just came down to strategy last year about identifying which races were the best ones to play and where I had my strongest opinions in some cases in terms of where maybe I would go against the grain a little bit. And I also wasn't afraid. Even though it's a 14 race card, I wasn't afraid to double up. I doubled up in a few races. I doubled up with like Life is Good and Stiletto Boy. I doubled up with Atone and Space Traveler. Like I only played probably like 7 of the 14 actual races on the card. But I nailed it right. I knew where those wins were going to be or some underneath plays were going to be and things like that. So it was just, so when you're looking at it, don't fall in love with having to do a horse in every single race or just go, well, because there's 14 races, I can't double up anywhere. If you have a strong opinion, double up. If you think you can hit the exacta, by all means, double up, and so it's just a lot of strategy when you get into these really big cards, but a lot of fun and can't wait to do it again this year.
We'll talk about that Gulfstream Park Saturday card. That's going to be a lot of our focus on this show. But because we have people that tune in and are playing the races on Friday, and a lot of times we give out Friday and Saturday plays, we figured we want to throw a little bone out there for some of the folks who are playing the races today as well. And there are Stable Duel games today also, Matt, at Gulfstream at Santa Anita. So you're going to take a few at Gulfstream and give the folks out there a play or two at Gulfstream. I'm going to give the folks out there a play or two at Santa Anita, and then we'll shift on over and we'll talk about probably most of the Pegasus card for tomorrow as you and I can kind of navigate our way through that and give out a bunch of our favorite plays for the Saturday card. So why don't you tell the folks real quick what the contests are today that they have an opportunity to play in?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, they have 3 different tracks. So if you're playing on the East Coast, if you're playing on Gulfstream Park, they got 2 races. They have a $10 race, top 10, $1,000 payout. So always a lot of fun to do those, as well as a $50 double up contest at Gulfstream Park. At Tampa Bay Downs, they have a $4 single entry game. So those are always a lot of fun. You got one shot, see if you can do it, but $200 worth of winnings for only a $400 entry. And then out at Santa Anita, there is a $25 game with a $750 pool, which is a top 5 contest. So those payouts are really nice in those top 5 contests. So that's what they got going on today.
On a big weekend, you need to head to Daily Racing Form for your past performances. DRF.com, Daily Racing Form PPs, our personal favorites, the one that we pull up here, the one that I like to use are the formulator past performances. We can take one click, look at race replays, one click and look at pedigree information in a race like this, where you have a bunch of first-time starters. You can see what a horse's dam was like. You can see what their direct siblings were like and their actual past performances. So you have tons of great information right at your fingertips here. So worth the price of purchase at drf.com. So Matt, you'll be looking at races 1 and 9 for Gulfstream Park. Start us off today in the opener. Where's the play for you here?
Yeah, the play's on the outside, which is a little dicey, I think, in these 7.5 furlong routes. But I like the number 11 quite a bit. Amor Salve. And this is, you mentioned there's a lot of first-time starters in this race. And if you go through, there's not a lot in this race, honestly. So you get to the far outside, you look at the 11 horse, and you look at that last effort, and that's good enough to maybe win in this race. If not win, certainly be competitive. I mean, really.
Like just for example, what's different from the 8 and the 11?
They literally came out of the same race and finished one spot different.
I know, and the 8 is 9-2,
right?
And the 11 is 15-1,
right? So, and the 11 has showed progress every single time out. The 2 times on synthetic and then going to turf, has his best speed figure to date on the turf. But also, if you just look at placement, this horse just gets a little bit better every single time.
Yep.
Was well beaten 8th first time out, runs a more competitive 5th next time out, runs an even more competitive 5th the following time out, getting Lasix for the first time. I just think this is a horse that makes a lot of sense, is going to need a little bit of speed to run at for sure. But I actually kind of like some of the first timers here, because a lot of times when you get these first timers, these horses can feel good. They're in the gate for the first time. They go out there. They're maybe a little more aggressive than they would normally be. They don't necessarily have tactics yet. They're not tactical in terms of where they're going to be. They're just going. And I like a horse that has a couple of races under his belt. And if he can work out a trip from that far outside post, and because he takes back, I'm not too worried. I'd be more worried if he was more of a mid-pack horse.
You're right, because then he's going to be forced
closer.
wide.
Yeah, if he's a dead closer, then just hang back and then move into the rail, and you should be in the 2 path probably. So I think this is a really smart value play for only $500 on your stable dual lineup, as opposed to, you said, that 9-2 horse that's basically about the same. And that's going to cost you $6,500. So I like the 11 a lot here for only $500. That's where I'll go in race 1.
Just $500 on the 11. This is a nice play. Julian's had a slowish start to the meet, but I still think it's a positive, him jumping aboard here, taking the call. This horse looks live. And like you said, even with just the 12 stretching out and drawn way outside, you also have the 8. Those 2 alone should make sure this is at least an honest enough pace. Right?
Correct.
Then you add all the first-time starters in, a horse like the 7, Lady Bourbon, who's stretching out, who could be more forwardly placed, a horse like the 3, who could be a little more forwardly placed, also the 2. So I like this one, Matt. It's a race that I don't think people might attack, because they would look at it and go, it's not a very strong race, right?
Right.
But when you take a second glance and you start eliminating horses, this is a horse that's actually moving in the right direction, where a lot of these other horses don't have many positives.
No, and it's kind of staying at the same level, and has been progressing at this level too. So I just, like I said, makes a lot of sense at 15-1, and the fact that this horse will be able to work out a trip from that 11 post, I think, is the key. Because again, if you were to be stuck 5 wide or something like that, I'd be worried. But this horse is just going to let everybody else go and just tuck in. So and then go.
Got to give a shout out to number 4 in here. When I really started doing a lot of like broadcasting stuff at PCC at Pasadena City College, my buddy Justin Goldstein and I, we were working on the sports radio over there, and they didn't have a whole lot of like sports radio stuff going on the PCC school side. So we created a show called The Play-by-Play, where we would just do like, a couple times a week. And back then it was really funny. We would stream it through Facebook when we would go, and you could only listen like if you were really close to the PCC school, the college,
sure.
Or we would like put it through Facebook. And so a lot of our friends would start to interact with us on Facebook. And man, this was like 2006, 2007. And it was kind of cool, because it was sort of my first chance to really talk a lot about sports. And then I got the chance to announce play-by-play games for soccer, for baseball, for football, for basketball, like all because of that. And the reason why I'm bringing my friend up, he's from New York. He's from Brooklyn. He's got a really strong, thick Brooklyn accent. And whatever he says, anytime you see him was good. Was good. I actually sent him a picture of this horse the other day. I said, your horse is running. What's good? What's good, old man? So shout out to one of my first ever broadcast partners, Justin. I actually got the chance to go visit him this year. And when I went to Oklahoma, I was at his wedding earlier on in the year. So what's good, old man? Hopefully you hit this horse right off the bat today.
Nice.
So Matt, let's move from race 1 to race 9 for you at Gulfstream Park.
Let's stop over at race 5 on the way there.
Yeah.
Just because I want to point out something very quick on the 1 horse.
Yep.
The number 1 horse is, or at least I think it's race 6, Gino. I apologize.
Yep. No problem.
Race 6. And the number 1 horse is Easy as ABC. Trying synth for the first time. Notice the 5 furlong, 59-4 synth workout last time. And Arrogate Babies winning 21% on synth route races. 5-1. I like this play.
Catches a flyer.
Just a little bit of a flyer, but on the inside, going to be ground saving. Trying synth for the first time, but this horse ran its best effort routing. And I think they've been screwing up sprinting this horse. I think getting back to routing is what this horse does best. So I wanted to toss that one out there.
I like that. Just send hard from the inside, Easy as ABC. So Matt had one for you at the beginning of the card, one in the middle, and then one towards the end of the card in race number 9 on the turf course. Who are we looking at here?
Yeah, we're going to look at the number 3 horse, which is Kizzy. And this is an interesting horse. I mentioned those 7.5 furlong starts. Preferably, you want to be more on the inside because that starting gate is really close to the first turn and you don't want to get hung out. So I like horses that are a little bit more on the inside. Kizzy is 8-1 on the morning line, I should say, for Monica McGooey. Only going to cost you $3,000. This horse has been progressing on the turf. Again, a little bit of muddy running lines, some stops and starts, some other surfaces. But if you just isolate the turf, this horse has been running pretty well on the turf overall. Is 5 for 8 in the money with 2 wins on the turf. Only 2 career wins were on the turf. And I just like the inside draw here, coming off of a win last time out and may have actually discovered something last time out. Horse broke really
coming
awkwardly.
From off the pace, right?
Yeah. Horse broke really awkwardly, and it was hard to tell if if she got pinched or what exactly happened, but it was just kind of an awkward start and footing. And she had to take back, but she has a ton of natural speed to kind of make it up to mid-pack pretty quickly, but still realized that this horse could come from off the lead. Now, she could absolutely send here, and I think that would be fine. Front-end speed has actually been holding up really nicely at the Gulfstream Park turf. So there's some versatility now suddenly that Morelos has. Morelos, I should say, has. So I think that's a positive that this horse now can attack this race a couple of different ways. But like I said, it has been progressing. And you look at that speed figure last time out, that fits in this field. And at 8-1, you're getting a little bit of value for a horse. I think it's going to get a nice trip on the inside, has some versatility. Coming, I think is kind of starting to finally come into her own. So wanted to give that one out in the final race of the day.
Really like Kizzy here. You know what? Barry and I were looking at the Gulfstream Saturday card earlier. This is the old simplification. What happened, right? Simplification used to be straight speed. And then that one time completely misses the break. And now all of a sudden they can kind of do whatever they would like. They have some options. They have some versatility there.
Yep.
That is Kizzy coming a little later on today for you as we make the move from Friday Gulfstream to Friday Santa Anita. So Matt, let everybody know what Santa Anita games they could play today while I flip over our past performances and move from Gulfstream to Santa Anita.
Yeah, so at Santa Anita Day, there's just the one big contest, but it is a $25. I like these $25 contests.
Me too.
Not too much, not too inexpensive, but it's a $25.
Right in the wheelhouse.
It is. And $25 top 5 contest. So top 5 players pay out. maximum of 3 entries, pot $750. That pot can absolutely grow, I think, based upon the number of entries today. So really, like I said, an enticing contest there at Santa Anita.
Yeah, and in Southern California in particular, we are fans of pot growing out here. So thank you, folks. Thank you, folks, as we continue along. So Santa Anita, I've got 2 for you folks at Santa Anita for today for Friday, and I'm going to look at races 1 and race 8. So I'll go
Nice.
early and late here as well. Race number 1 is a mile on the turf course here, and what's interesting about this race is like almost all of the major players in this race are coming off the bench, which isn't all that surprising like at this point of the year, right? You'll see a lot of races now where you'll have horses that are maybe starting their year. It's towards the end of January, but particularly you have Irish Prophet, who had a little layoff and then again a little bit of a layoff, like 2.5 months, and then again another 2+ months after that. You have Admiralty Place, who's a player, but we haven't seen since July, and that was after coming over to the U.S. after a couple-month break. You also have the 34 Coupe, who has not raced since January of 2022. So we're talking about, a legitimate year layoff now. And you also have the number 5, Overrule, who has not raced since April. The number 7, Dancing Rika, hasn't raced since November. The number 8, Ridley's Major, hasn't raced since May. Honestly, all of the major contenders in this race have not raced at all since at least November. And then I sort of get to the number 3, Pelagio.
Yep.
Pelagio is going to try turf for the first time, but when you take a look at the pedigree of Pelagio, Pelagio's dam never tried the turf, but not like anything that's crazy overwhelming. But Pelagio does have a direct sibling named Sequin, who was pretty good on the turf, who was an allowance type horse who broke the maiden and was really competitive against allowance horses at Keeneland in a strong turf race. And Pelagio has never tried the turf prior to that. The only other sibling that tried the turf was this one. I think there was one more too, Maria from Miami, and then Prolific Runner. So you have a turf sib winner, a couple others that didn't, but mainly for this, I look at the recency. I look at the fact turf shouldn't be an issue, and the fact that this is a horse with a little bit of versatility here. Exits a couple strong races back here. We've seen Go and Joe and Hero Status both come back to win. I think it's just a good horse in a good spot at the right price, catching a lot of other horses that might need a race for their best. And then we've got Pelagio, who's ready to make his 3rd start of the bench off the bench. It's his first start at 4. Just a lot of positive things for him, whereas everybody might be just kind of a step behind in this one.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I like that play. And honestly, that reminds me a lot of race 1 tomorrow at Gulfstream, where I believe 10 of the 12 entries are coming off of a layoff. And so, that's absolutely a place where you can attack and try to find that horse that might be in a slightly better form. And it's just so hard to read the tea leaves with horses coming off the bench of whether or not a trainer really has the horse cranked up. Is this just a leg stretcher? Is this just a, let's see what we got? And
especially when it's going long on the turf,
Yeah.
because sometimes it's hard to get horses ready to go long, right? You can be a great trainer. It's just hard to get horses fit sometimes to go long or first time out. So usually you need a race or two for your best efforts. I wouldn't be shocked if everyone's a little short here, and this horse just kind of falls into a really nice spot. Pelagio, who's 6-1. That's the exact average that we need in our stable duel lineups. When we're putting together a stable duel contest, we're looking for horses that are right on that $5,000 par all the way through. So Pelagio to open up the card for me, and then I will close out the card in race number 8 with the number 6, a nice price in here. This one is 10-1 on the morning line. This is an optional $50,000 claiming race, going 1 1/8 miles on the turf course here. And I'm going to look to the number 6, Derecho Dandy. This is another race that's not that strong. You have horses that probably thought they were a little bit better, and now they've ended up here kind of dropping in class. And if you look at Derecho Dandy, we say this a lot. I say this a lot, Matt. He makes sense. Everything that this horse has done makes sense to me. So let's look at his career. He's only raced 7 times. His first 2 starts, they're against maiden special weights, and they're in pretty tough races, actually. At Del Mar, at the time of the year, with the really nice 2-year-olds like Montebello, Flying Drummer, Oviatt Class, Barossa. Those are all pretty highly regarded horses at that time period.
Yeah.
Didn't even run all that poorly in those two races, finishing 4th and 5th in those races. Then comes back in his first start on the turf on October the 17th. He wins. He breaks his maiden against maiden special weights. He goes wire to wire. He actually shows speed going a mile on the turf. Following that, they try Stakes Company in back-to-back races. And you know what? He just runs into groups that are a little bit too tough. He was 13-1. He was 11-1 in those races. And the races both came back live. Cabo Spirit, who was third in the Cecil B. DeMille, came back to win the Eddie Logan. And in the Eddie Logan, there were a couple other horses that came back out of that race and were pretty good. Maglev, who we've seen come back and win a stakes out of that. We also saw Handy Dandy come back and be like a graded stakes, like a grade 2-ish type horse. He was 4th in the Hollywood Derby, won the Let It Ride. He's only been beaten a couple lengths in grade 2s. So those two races don't bother me whatsoever. They're fine efforts against tougher groups. Yeah. Following that race, that's January of 2022. He's off for 11. He doesn't show back up till November.
Yeah.
So the entire 2022, he's off. We know he's going to need the race when he shows back up. And actually, look what in the sprint race on the turf, he throws up a career best buyer off of the long layoff. It's not even like he runs a bad race. Then they stretch him out. He tries the synthetic up at Golden Gate. But you know what? That race, could be a combination of things, right? Like he shows speed. Maybe he doesn't like the synthetic. It's actually not even it's a pretty tough group too. He's like 7-1 there. Yeah. And now you get some class relief. He's in an optional claimer. He gets back to going long on the turf. And I think he'll be forwardly placed in here. When you start just going through each of those races, he fits really well for a 10-1 shot, who I don't really love anyone else in this race. You know, you're looking at speed figures and stuff. He really stacks up very well with them. And Bravo was aboard for the win. Sadler had him before and just sent him up to Golden Gate for that race. Just give me Derecho Dandy at 10-1, only 1,000 in your stable dual lineups.
I like it. That's a good play.
So we got 2 for you at Santa Anita for Friday. Good luck in the opener. Good luck closing things out. And now we move to Saturday at Gulfstream. It's a big Saturday at Gulfstream Park. 13 races, big money up for grab in the stable dual game, the Pegasus game. So Matt, we can kind of start and just navigate through a lot of the card. And I think it just sort of like say if it's a race that we like anyone or not, because we'll spend most of the card at Gulfstream Park. But when you're, like you said, when you're filling out your lineups, it's weird, as you and I were talking a bit about this yesterday, like nothing in gambling, nothing in betting is ever easy. But as far as putting together a stable dual lineup, sometimes you can have really like a race card that has short fields, and it's hard to put a stable dual lineup together because you're like, damn, this race, every horse I have to spend at least $5,000 on, or you know, there's just not very many like value plays. You might be wrong in your opinion tomorrow at Gulfstream Park, but it's a lot easier to build a lineup because in every race you have, I can go 5-1 up. There's an 8-1 shot that looks good. There's a 10-1 shot. There's a 12-1 shot in here. So you're not going to be right in all these races because they're challenging, they're big fields. But as far as just putting together a lineup, it's easier to maneuver on a day like this.
Much easier to maneuver. You have some really good horses at very affordable prices from a stable dual standpoint, and some just, I think, really attractive races to attack. And you know, I just think there's a ton of value in this field up and down. And you're right. You may be wrong in your opinion. The great thing is, like, in every single one of these races, there's like 3 value plays that I could like legitimately make an argument for. And so I just think that it's just going to give you so many options when you go to build your lineup.
So yeah, let's kind of move through a lot of the card. Now, we talked about race number 1, just sort of as you were pointing out that a lot of the horses don't have a whole ton of recency and are coming off it. Was there anything really in race number 1 that you loved or worth mentioning? You kind of started in race 2, right?
Yeah, started in race 2. I do think the Shug McGahee horse in race 1 coming off the bench. I think this is it the 5, I think.
On alert.
On alert. It's kind of interesting. She's run against a really good caliber of horse before. Running against My Philly Twirl, running against Dulce Zell, running against Consumer Spending, running against Pizza Bianca. I mean, she's run against some really good ones. Shug is, it's interesting. We always say Shug likes to run him into shape, but off of a 6+ layoff, Shug is actually 26% off the bench, which is about as good as you're going to see in the industry.
Which is really funny because, like you're saying, he's not that way with first-time starters.
No.
And I think that definitely shows you something because he's willing to maybe ask a little bit more of horses that have run off of the bench, right?
Yep.
Because they've got experience, they know what they're doing versus, hey, I don't necessarily want to get a first-time starter cranked up. Maybe it might be a little too much to ask of them before they've got that racing experience under their belt. I think it's a really interesting contrast to see barns that can do that. I think Carla Gaines is one that does that also well, like brings them off the bench, but not necessarily first time out of the box. So
Shuri DeVoe's a little bit like that as well. She can get them ready off the layoff really well, but first time starters aren't great. So, but yeah, that was one that I thought, 6-1, good value there. But that's a wide open one. If you like a price there, go for it because everybody's coming off the bench.
And then towards the outside, we've got our guy. I never thought my life would be anything but catastrophe. We could sing a whole lot of Willy Wonka songs. That Grandpa Joe, man, he pisses me off every time. I tell you, man, he's just, come on. There's some funny rants out there about Grandpa Joe, people that have like comedy segments and they're like, he's in the bed all the time. What are you doing in there? And then you just get up out of nowhere that day randomly. Come on, Grandpa. It's pretty funny. So good stuff as we get to race number 2 on the big Gulfstream Park Saturday card. I will say, like, I'm a Southern California player. Most of my life playing Santa Anita, Del Mar, and there are good days at Southern California, like on the big days that are awesome. I think just as good as like big days anywhere. But you look at a day like this at Gulfstream and not even the big graded stakes at the end of the card, but like the races like race 2, like these maiden special weight races that you just have like littered throughout these cards. A lot of the time I'm like, where do all these horses come from? When you have so many of these races, like it's quality horses. So this maiden special weight in race number 2, Matt, is actually a race where you like a horse, and I think I got to send Bree a little bit of a note because I was helping her out with a couple price value plays for a Stable Duel blog this week. I sent in one in this race, the number 8, but normally I'm thinking Bourbon Reserve. I sent in Bourbon Reserve. It's Bourbon Resolve. I think I typed it in. I think it must have been in my head, but nonetheless. That's who I took a look at.
That's my pick as well in this one.
Oh, right off the bat.
That's my top. And I'm glad you're showing this replay because this is good. This is very informative.
So the horse we're talking about is the number 7 on the replay that we're watching here. This is Bourbon Reserve. I did it again. Bourbon Resolve's debut on December the 31st. And the horse is good start, like close up right with the group, as you can see, but 4 wide and in between horses to start. And so you could see even right there, the horse kind of was like already in tight, almost having to take up because it was a tough spot. And you're parked 4, look at on the head on. We're basically out in like the 5.5 path.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. Honestly, like we're close up, we're contending.
Yeah.
And we make a big 3 wide bid now all the way up to challenge at the top of the lane. But the horse who wins the race is the 2. And look where the 2 is right here.
Sure.
Inside, getting all the positioning. Like, I thought this was a very, very good effort from a horse first time out of the box.
Yep.
Just spotting the field, a bunch of ground. Even right here, he's still kind of trying too. Like he has every right to back up, but he still tries hard. And now he's going to get Lasix for the first time. And I really like the way he came back and worked. You can check out one of his works on XBTV on the January 13th work. And he's come back since on January the 21st and worked pretty well. We're both on Bourbon Resolve.
Yeah. And actually, would you mind showing the head on
no problem.
angle as well? Because this horse got bumped in a very unusual way. And it was well after the break. So again, we're keeping an eye on our 7. And normally you would expect the bumping and jostling to take place now, but it doesn't. So the horses actually get up to almost full speed. They're in tight, but then watch this.
Yeah, you
That
get pinball
notice
and you
that
lose your
the
footing.
Pinball lost his footing, and like I said, it's one thing to get bumped around a little bit at the beginning, when you're just kind of trying to get up to speed. It's another thing when you're pretty much at full speed and you
It
start
knocks you
getting
off
bumped
stride.
around. Yeah, knock you off stride, all that. So I just saw that. I was like, that's a little bit more trouble than maybe you would realize, especially if you watched it from the other angle. And so I thought at 6-1, this horse made a ton of sense. And it was, to your point, it always hits that exact average $5,000 that you're looking for. So yeah, my top pick, Bourbon Resolve in this one.
Yep. Well, we get to Bourbon Resolve right off the bat. Me and Matt both on the number 8 in race number 2. As we turn the page, third race is up next. They'll go 1 3/8 on the turf here. Maddie, in this one, the horse who I sort of look to towards the outside is a horse who's just trending in the right direction, and that's the number 10 Marwad.
Yeah.
Super lightly raced in here, and we're just getting that progression in basically every race. From the career debut, following the career debut, where this horse won going long first time out, which is not easy to do, and was 17-1. Then came back at 13-1 in a stakes race in the second start and was a really good third. Then in career start number 3, they took a shot racing against our friends over at Colonial in the Virginia Derby and did not disgrace themselves in that race at all. Actually had like a little bit of sneaky trouble in that spot and was 5th and was only beaten like 4 lengths in a field of 10. Came out of that race. They dropped him down to give him a little bit of class relief. It was a first level allowance at Gulfstream. He wins nicely. And then last time out, pretty good effort too on December the 4th. It was sneaky. He trailed early in that race. He was about 10 lengths out of it because they were going kind of quick. He just got a little bit outrun because he's not that fast. See, when they go like 45 to the half mile, he's in a little bit of trouble because it's not going to set up for his late kick. What it does is it sort of distances him from the field.
Right.
Because some horses that will help, I don't think he's that type of horse. He's more of a grinder.
Yeah.
He just sort of gets too far behind. If you'll notice, when they go like 48 and change, then he's fine. 48, 49, 50, he'll come closing. That's why I think this race will be really nice for him going even longer because he's going to be able to get off to that real like comfortable clip a little bit better, and his grinding style I think will really fit nicely in this spot. So I just sort of like him continuing to move in the right direction. He's right at that range that we're looking for, right? 5-6 to 1-ish. He's going to cost us 6,000, so he's slightly above our average. A little bit of a slow start to the meet for Javi, but I expect that'll move back up and he'll probably be in the 15-ish% range pretty soon. So Marwad, that's the play for me in race number 3, the number 10. And then I think we both move to the 5th race next.
Okay.
This was actually one that I said was going to be one of my spend up plays a little bit more. So I'll be talking about a horse. It's a little bit pricier than we would normally spend on this stream. Tell us who you're looking at here, Matt.
Yeah, so I look at the right on the inside rail, the number 1 double clutch at 8-1 on the morning line. Only going to cost you $3,000. And this is a horse, again, that makes sense. Every single race makes sense. So debuts at Gulfstream Park, runs a competitive third, comes running late. Next time out, breaks maiden in actually a more expensive maiden special weight at Keeneland. Then takes a break, comes off the bench to run a really competitive second to Annapolis in a stakes race. Then probably steps up a little too much and runs in the Grade 2 Hall of Fame and finishes 5th. Doesn't disgrace himself, but finishes 5th by about 3 lengths. And then here's where things I think go off the rails. Goes to Kentucky Downs and runs 1 5/16 and finishes well back.
I'll tell you, I don't want to run 1 5/16 on that turf course going up and down, and I will be getting out. I can promise you. It won't look good for me.
No. And so then the next time out goes to the Byron Station and goes back to 1 mile. But we've talked before about that Kentucky Downs bounce a little bit where that course takes it out of horses, and especially a horse that's going well more than it's ever gone before in his life, goes 1 5/16, then goes back to 1 mile, then goes to the bench. This horse is... I think this is a really good horse for this particular spot. And I just think he's run against really good horses before. And I like what he brings to the table here for this one.
This race was very live, and it's important for both of our analysis in this race because I'm going to talk about the 4 Axel Thumb.
That's actually my top pick in this race.
There we go. Yeah,
the 1 is my value play.
That's great. Yeah, and that's the horse who I put in as like I don't mind spending up a little bit more for on this particular race. Bolitnikov came out of the Bryan Station, came right back and just missed in the Mathis Mile on opening day at Santa Anita. Witt, who was the runner up in that race, came right back out of the Bryan Station and was a really good third in the Hollywood Derby. We're going to see both of those horses later on the Gulfstream car. Not Bolitnikov. We're going to see Witt. So I just feels like a really nice spot for horses coming out of that race. I have no problem at all with the horse that you talked about, Double Clutch, who will offer a little more value. And for me, the spend up in this race was on the number 4, who, again, look at this horse's 5-race career. Debut, runner-up, second start, comes back and wins. Third start at Keeneland on the turf, a really nice third behind Bay Street Money. Bay Street Money comes back to win next time out. Following that, you're in a grade 3, finishing third, only beaten 3/4 of a length. And then last out, it's an easy toss. It's a synthetic race. You just take a shot on the synthetic. Okay, it's not even like a bad effort, only beating a few lengths. And actually, that was Golden Glider, who Barry and I liked a little bit last year. We played Golden Glider a few times in some of these bigger spots.
Tampa Bay Derby, I remember that.
Yeah, we were kind of waiting for him to get back to one of these bigger efforts. They took a shot in the Belmont with him also. So, yeah, I'm looking at the 4, and you said this one was one that you gave out as your top selection also, right?
Yeah, I like this 4 a lot as well. And you're right, you could just toss the line through the last effort. It was also going a mile and a 16th, and we've talked before about how funny milers are. You get them just slightly off of that mile distance and kind of the wheels start to fall off a little bit. And so this is just a pure miler, and you're getting back on the turf, and just a lot of things to like. This horse was doing nothing but progress. I doubt that progression is going to be stopped because of one off-turf race that they had to run on the Tapeta that day. And I think this horse at 4-1 still, I think, is pretty decent value.
I agree.
And it's going to roll. And so if you can get a 4-1 top pick, like, that's great. So
he should just sit a really nice trip too. Like, I like his running style. I think he should put him in a good spot, give him a little bit of versatility. We're both on the 4 in race number 5. This one would cost you $7,000 in your stable dual lineup. So we're really not having to spend up all that much either, but one that we feel pretty confident will give a really nice account of themselves in the 5th. So, Matt, you will have one in race number 8, and then we can kind of look at the late pick 4 and go through the 3 Pegasus races also. So talk to us about this 8th race, which is the Inside Info Stakes. It's a 7 furlong for the fillies and mares, right?
Yep. And this is where I think you have to make a choice in this sort of a field if you're going to fade Obligatory, and I am. And so Obligatory is a very nice horse, a horse I really like going into the Pegasus, or into the Breeders' Cup, I should say.
Me too. I think it was our top selection.
Yeah, I believe so. And a couple scratches actually impacted, I think, the pace of that filly and mare sprint. And Obligatory is a very pace-dependent horse. She needs a fast pace to run into because she is a closer. And honestly, there's not a ton of speed in this race. Our Adios Jersey on the far outside is really the only speed in this race. Now, here's the thing about Our Adios Jersey that, we just have to address up front. This was a different horse after leaving Georgina Baxter's barn. This is a horse that got popped for performance-enhancing drugs for that Charlestown Oaks performance, and has gone out of that barn. And I think the horse is running clean now, but it nevertheless, from a speed figure standpoint, this horse is not running quite as well. The fractions maybe aren't quite as crisp. So I don't think Our Adios Jersey is going to be running these crazy hot fractions up front, especially because nobody else really needs the lead in this race. So it's going to be a pretty uncontested lead. So I could see somebody making an argument that Our Adios Jersey might be a good pick, but I will ultimately go to Mary Quite Contrary at 5-1.
Yep, that's the one that I would have gravitated towards too. Yeah,
this just feels like the logical play. This is a horse that can sit relatively close to the pace, especially in a race like this where there's not a lot of speed. She can sit a little further back. She's 5 for 6 winning at Gulfstream Park. She, started her career absolutely on a roll, likes the 7 furlong distance. That last effort out at the Rampart Stakes was so impressive. Like I said, 5-1, only going to cost you $6,000. I think if you're going to fade obligatory, she makes a ton of sense at a really reasonable price for Stable Duel to get the second choice basically in this race for only $6,000. So that was my top pick in the Inside Info Stakes.
Yeah, I feel very, very high on Mary. Quite contrary. She's just in great form. Like, I like playing horses like this in spots like this. She's honest. And now this is where you take a shot in a stakes race like this. That's not.
Yeah.
This is a good spot to step up and see how good you are.
Exactly.
Right?
No, because you've gone through this progression of like a state restricted stakes race, an open field handicap, an open field listed stakes race. Now let's step up to the grade 2. And it makes sense.
She's making her first start as a 4-year-old.
Yep.
She continues to step forward. Luca seems to get along with her very well too, right?
Yes,
Every time he's been aboard her,
right.
They've connected. So
that's a good point. The only time she's lost, he was off her that day. And so, very good.
She's adapted. She's not one that you expect to be on the lead, but she can sit a little close if they're not going all that fast. And I think she might be able to sit maybe third in here.
I think so too.
If she wants.
Yeah.
So
there's not a lot of speed.
I like this, Maddie. Mary, quite contrary, in the 8th race, one of the stakes races on a 6-7 graded stakes race card.
Yeah,
as we
awesome.
Yeah, we continue along on the big day at Gulfstream Park. Let's move to the 10th race, one that we both will be looking at. Now, in the last 4 races, what's funny is a couple of them I feel like have a good amount of speed on paper, and then there's 1 or 2 that doesn't have very much speed on paper, and that's what's great about looking at each race individually as the puzzles that they are. I thought that the 10th race was one that did have a pretty good amount of speed on paper. Just sort of looking through the field here, we think I think the 3 Mish will be forwardly placed. You'd imagine the 4 Octane will be forwardly placed at least. The 5 Hoist Your Gold is out. The 6 Black Belt is going to want to be close up. The 7 Picking Up Pennies is going to want to be close up. The 8 Doc Amster is going to want to be close up. And towards the outside, Dean Delivers is going to want to be close up. I would not be shocked if Prevalence wants to be close up from way out there because his best races are sitting close. Now, all of a sudden, Matt, we could have 5 or 6 horses in here, just different combinations of them on the lead. So I'm looking for someone off the pace. And the horse who actually, shout out to Barry, our guy, Barry Spears. He's not here with us this morning, but he's here with us each and every week. He's actually heading to Gulfstream Park this weekend. We both landed on the 9 Endorsed.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
As our play. Just sort of looking at Endorsed as a horse who doesn't need the lead, but has some versatility, can sit maybe right behind those top group of horses that are going to be flashing speed. Endorsed has run well at Gulfstream Park. He's just not really like a grade 1, like top level grade 2 kind of horse. But I think he's the type of horse he like flirts with graded stakes races, right? With like his level. And he's going to make his 3rd start off the bench, 3rd start of the form cycle here. I think he's one of the horses who could get the trip that I'm looking for. So I went to Endorsed here at 5-1, 6,000 in the Stable Duel lineup. Who was someone that you were looking at in here?
Yeah, so we see the race the exact same way, and I think there's a ton of speed. As a result, I went to the far outside. I went to the 13 post for 12-volt man.
That was the literally when Barry and I went through handicapping, that was the other horse he mentioned as a horse to use in pick 4s and pick 5s, and he really fits.
Yeah, he does. Because he's going to come running late. That's his thing, and he's got great late speed. The other part is this is a big field, and it's that 1-turn mile. And the nice part about somebody's going to get caught super wide. Like that's just what's going to happen.
It's inevitable.
But what I love about breaking from this 13 post and his running style is it's kind of like the one horse we talked about earlier. He's just going to take back, like fine, go, and then we'll tuck in and sit kind of 2nd, 3rd path. And so he's going to come running late. I like him at a 1-turn mile. I think they've been running him at slightly the wrong distance. They've been trying to run him at like 1 1/8 sometimes. He's not that horse. I think he's a 1-turn horse. and he's 2 for 4 winning at the 1 turn mile, 3 for 4 in the exacta. He's got among the strongest late pace speed figures in the field. I think this pace is going to break down up front because it's not just that there's horses that like to be forwardly placed. You have some horses like Doc Amster, for instance, that's really like a 5.5 furlong sprinter.
Stretching
and so
out.
you have
Yep.
some legit sprinter speed, not miler speed. So it's going to be a very hot pace. I think it's going to melt down. I look for the 13 to get a pretty good trip. I gotta give a shout out Frankie Dettori coming east as well. So and this is for Saffie Joseph. So I mean, if you're gonna get 8-1 on a Saffie horse in South Florida, I'll take that all the time with Frankie Dettori aboard. So that's where I went with 12 Volt Man at 8-1 for only $3,000.
Shout out to our guy Jake with Thrilling Picks, who's doing the old.
I know my phone's blowing up.
He's memeing and gifting along with us. So shout out to Jake. Hope you're doing well on this Friday morning as we continue along, Maddie. So yeah, that was one that Barry and I both thought was intriguing. 12 Volt Man, depending on what you have to spend up in this particular race. Like this is a fun race too, because we know a lot of these horses. We're familiar with a lot of them.
Yeah.
Like Prevalence, I don't mind Prevalence at 15-1. You know what I mean?
No,
because he's thrown in some clunkers recently. I wouldn't like Prevalence at 5-1 or less. But if you're playing like late exotics and you want to throw a horse like this in, who has the upside to have an A race that stacks up with these, absolutely. Endorsed, who hasn't been one that wins a lot of the big races. I just think he's in a pretty good spot and fits pretty well. And what's nice about 12 Volt Man, who you were mentioning too, Matt, just piggybacking some of your positive points. I love horses that you can tell they're now starting to get back into their cycle, their fitness level after, he had a race in January, then a couple months off. He had a race in April, then a couple months off. He shows back up in August. He wins. Then he has a couple months off. Then in November, he shows back up and it's the race in the slop. So that's an easy toss. And that January race, okay, boom. Now it's like we're starting.
Yeah.
And that was a good runner-up effort. And all you just need is one step forward off of that to put him right there. 12 Volt Man on the outside for Matt. 8-1 on the morning line. That'll only cost you $3,000 in your stable duel lineup. So we get to the 3 Pegasus races on the Saturday card. Races 11, 12, and 13. 2 of them grade 1s. The first, the 11, is still a grade 3. It's the Filly and Mare World Cup Turf. And we will have some scratches in here. The 5, Mona Stella, the 10, and the 11 are out. But even with those scratches, Matt, I still thought there's a pretty good amount of pace in this race because, you have Artie's Princess, who's stretching out from sprints. You have Delika, who is going to be on the front end. Delika always goes.
Yep.
You have Sweet Enough, who I think will be forwardly placed in here. Yep. I mean, Goddess wants to be on the front end. That's where she's going to go. Yep. And I think between the combination of those, we could have 2 or 3 horses pushing it. And I think it will be honest enough. Yep. And that led me to Wakanaka.
Yeah.
There we go. Another one.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love
so, we know what we're going to get with Wakanaka. Honestly, from last year when she showed up on this same day on the Pegasus card and she was 6th in a race where she actually ran decently that day. Like she didn't run all that poorly and she was behind Regal Glory and she's been behind Regal Glory a couple times this year.
Right.
And with Wakanaka, when she loses, when you look at who she's lost to horses that are either a little bit better or just have more pace than her early on. They're just more tactical than her. So in shorter fields, she's always going to lose to a horse like In Italian.
Right.
She's always going to lose to a horse like Regal Glory a couple times because they're going to get the jump on her every time. And I don't really have any knocks on her entire year last year. She gets beat. She faces the boys. They thought enough of her to actually take a shot against the boys.
Yep.
And in that game, she runs into 2-time Breeders' Cup winner Modern Games in that race.
Yep.
And she runs into Ivar, who's going to be the favorite in the Pegasus turf.
Yeah.
I don't really have many knocks on her. I love the pattern, what they did also. Okay, these races were a little tough. Let's put her in a softer spot at Keeneland, get a confidence building win. That was a good effort. At the top of the lane, she was dead last, and she just tipped to the outside and blew right by him, kind of geared down. Like, super impressive.
Yeah. No, I see this one the same way. I think the one is the key to this whole race. The one is going to press Delika. And if you press Delika and she doesn't get the lead or she doesn't get an easy lead, then you can cross Delika out.
Yep.
And I want no part of Shantasara on the far outside.
Yeah, not after those recent lines, right? Shantasara last year is a grade 1 winner in 2021 is a grade 1 winner.
Right.
Goes to the bench and was about like April of 2022. The Jenny Wiley, that's supposed to be your starting point for the year, right? That's where she's going to start. And then she's off from April till November. Yep. She shows up in November in the race with Wakanaka, who runs right by her.
Yep.
And then we don't see her since.
Yep. And that was actually, it's funny. That was the race right after the Breeders' Cup Classic, the Fall Harvest. And I was one of about 12 people that actually stuck around for it.
Still there.
Everybody else cleared out. And I was like, let the traffic, clear out a little bit. And so just Sarah El Badwi and I were just like hanging out, betting on Wakanaka. But and Wakanaka won that day for us. I think Wakanaka is going to win again. I think you said the pace setup's going to be perfect. This is a very honest horse who's run up against great competition before. 5-1, only going to cost you $6,000. I just think she makes a ton of sense in this spot. This is a horse I've always liked. I think I've touted her a couple of times on this.
Yeah.
She always runs well underneath, but I think she wins this time. I really do. I think this race sets up really nicely for her.
Joelle fits her well too, right? Like with the running style.
Exactly. No, Joelle's going to take her back and then let's go. And he's been running a little bit better recently. He's gotten a couple of wins over the last couple of weeks.
I honestly wouldn't be shocked if he has like 3 or 4 wins on this.
Oh, I expect that. Yeah.
That's the kind of like it'll to kind of use the big day, I think, as a catapult and start to be fine. Like
he didn't forget how to ride. Yeah.
No, it's gonna same thing for Pratt. In a few weeks, those numbers are gonna be right back to where we expect them to be.
Exactly.
These
guys are too good and they get good mounts and they'll be fine. Yeah.
The other one that I thought is at least worth mentioning, and Barry agreed, could get the same sort of trip we're looking for.
7
Rockstar.
Yep. The 7. Yeah. Same here. Yep.
So if you're playing like late pick 4s, or pick 5s or exotics, I think that the coast to coast pick 5 is actually going to be a really fun one this week. It's all 3 of the Pegasus races, and it's the second race at Santa Anita, which is the Las Virgenes, I believe. So you're going to have 4 graded stakes races in the coast to coast pick 5. And I think it's races 2 and 3 at Santa Anita, and then these 3 Pegasus races. Yeah. So most of you that are listening to this or watching this, you're already going to handicap the Pegasus races, or you probably already handicapped them. So take a little swing at that coast to coast pick 5 too. And this might be a horse to throw in there, a Lady Rockstar along with a Wakanaka. You'll get nice prices. You should get good trips and get a good run for your money with the horse who is now going to go second start off the bench, was off from July to December, probably needed that last race, should be a little bit sharper now. She's going to make her second start, or she's actually going to make her first start as a 5-year-old mare. And sometimes these mares, they get a little bit, 5 is the season that I like for mares.
Yep.
It's like they get a little bit better as they get a little bit older sometimes.
Absolutely.
Like a fine wine, just a little bit better with age. As we move from race number 11 to race number 12. So we have the 2 big Pegasus races here. Maddie, first up, it's the World Cup Turf Invitational, and then we'll get to the World Cup. So mile and an eighth on the turf in here, and a lot of familiar names. We just spoke about Wit, who was in that Bryan Station behind in front of a couple horses that we liked.
Yep.
We know Atone is one that you and I have liked a little bit. Hurricane Dream comes in here first time, one more bid, won the Mathis Mile, and Hansen sends this one over off of back-to-back wins. Here's Lady Spitespear facing the boys. Speaking Scout for Graham Motion was over in the Hollywood Derby, just won on December the 3rd. You have a Sharp, Who's Your Star, who comes in from Woodbine. Decorated Invader was just behind City Man. They were 1-2 in the Fort Lauderdale. Then you have Ivar, who just never runs a bad race. Like in Breeders' Cups, best company around, doesn't matter. He always fires. Masterpiece is going to come running. It's a fun group, Maddie. But with all of that, I kind of felt like just stylistically, it's a little opposite than the last couple races we talked about. Like, there is not much early speed in this race for a big field like this.
There isn't. And this is one where when I handicapped this one, I was like, who's going to be close to the pace? Because like, that's where I think the winner is going to come from. I don't necessarily think it's going to be the horse on the lead necessarily, but I wouldn't want to be anywhere outside of the top 4. Because I think they're going to slow it down. It's not going to be super aggressive. The turf at Gulfstream Park has been very speed favoring and holding up front end speed, especially if it's reasonable. I think it's going to be reasonable here. I ultimately went with kind of the 6-3. I went with Lady Spite Spear and
Natty. We're in some trouble because those are my same two here. Exactly. I gave a Tone as like the price play in the blog write up, and you mentioned a Tone earlier, and these two should just be sitting maybe 1-2. Like, I would, if I'm Luis Saez, I think you just get aggressive on Lady Spite Spear. I think you may just get aggressive and go. I would like that to be the trip. She had a really good year last year.
Yeah.
She did. And like her poor performances, if we even want to call them poor, she's behind Bleecker Street in a race where she was only 3-1.
Right.
She's behind Regal Glory. And then, I mean, I don't really hold anything against horses in that Churchill Downs turf course, right? She didn't run poorly, and she maybe just didn't love it. And that course was weird. Following that, she's come back. She won 3 races in a row. Then she was third at 30-1 in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf.
Ran huge. Yeah.
Like, she fits really well in this spot.
Yeah, she does. And that last 5 furlong work on the Gulfstream Park turf, 59 and something. I forget exactly what it was. 59 and 3, I should say. Shows that she's ready to roll. I agree with you. I mean, and the nice part about Lady Spite Spear is she does have some versatility. So she used to be, if you go back and look at her, like all of her running lines, like she used to have like need the lead. Like when she was young, she was need the lead type of a horse, all the way. And then she started to learn I can rate a little bit and I can sit a little bit and I can come from a little off the pace. And that served her very, very well, that versatility. So I think she makes a lot of sense because Louis can be versatile. If a Tone really wants to go out and go to the lead, then he can sit behind that. That's fine. And that's not a problem. So speaking of a Tone, he's my favorite stable dual horse because I swear to God, there must be a conspiracy for morning line makers because they never give this horse respect in the morning line.
I know.
And he's always like 12-1, 15-1, 20-1. And then he runs really well. And he might not win all the time, but man, he in a day like this where you're like, I need to get some positive points for 12-1. Yes, please. Like you're going to get it from a Tone.
Like City Man, for example, like if we use City Man as the gauge, like City Man is your 4-1 second choice.
Yeah.
And a Tone is 12-1.
Makes sense.
And City Man and a Tone, like just look at the race when they were against each other last year. City Man beat a Tone, but they were 1-2 in that race, and a Tone gets a way better post in this race. Like, I mean, I couldn't play City Man in this race with the post because I think he's just going to get marooned out there.
And he gets Irad aboard. Like, so he's got like the best jockey in South Florida deciding to take a Tone's mount. And I imagine Irad had his choice of quite a few horses potentially in this race and decided to go with a Tone. For Mike Maker, I just think I always like a Tone a lot. I just think he's going to run an honest race. He's going to be up there and close to the lead. He can set reasonable fractions. He wired the field last time out at an allowance optional claimer, basically up at Aqueduct going 1 1/8. I just think this horse makes a ton of sense. And 12-1 on the morning line, only going to cost you $750 on Stable Duel. He's incredibly consistent. Really, the only blemish you could say that he had was last year at the Turf Mile. Again, that was also coming back from, and that's the other thing we talk about, that Kentucky Downs bounce, ran Kentucky Downs, ran well there, but that takes it out of horses sometimes and came back on less than a month's rest and didn't turn in the best performance in a grade 1. That's totally understandable.
And it's like the only bad race that you see recently at all.
Yeah.
He's a horse who, and for some reason, if he has a bad start or something goes off and he doesn't get right on the lead, he can still come from off the pace too.
Oh, absolutely.
Look, he showed us at Saratoga, he has no problem closing from basically dead last to
Yep.
come and to come flying.
Yep.
He even most recently comes out of a race that has produced a next out winner that's already
Yep.
come back live. Dreams of Tomorrow we've seen come back to win. Value Engineering we also saw came
Yeah.
back to win. So lots of positives for a horse who's 12-1, who's going to cost us $750 in our stable dual lineup, and hooks a field where there is not that much early speed in here. We both like a tone, and we think Lady Spitespear is also very live. But from a stable duel standpoint, like a tone just is half the price, like, right?
Yeah.
Half
I mean,
the price is Lady
tone makes
Spitespear.
a ton of sense. And I'm interested. The 9 is kind of interesting as well in this spot because I think the 9 is going to get maybe a similar trip of being close and is also a pretty big price for Clement. And that could be a horse that, again, ran second to City Man at the Fort Lauderdale, so is in pretty good form. And again, you're getting a really, a low price on Stable Duel in terms of like $500 for this horse. So I think this is a race where I would not be spending up because Ivar and City Man are marooned out in that 10 and 12 post, and I just don't think you're going to get the pace to run into. So I think this one, we see it pretty similarly, obviously.
Let's get to the big one, Maddie. We're going to get to the Pegasus World Cup.
Yep.
And we will go a mile and an eighth in here. Another race where we have a lot of familiar names, but we don't have a Life is Good, right?
No.
Cyberknife is super quality. Starting with him. This is going to be his final race.
Yeah.
He, like, really nice horse, really honest. In his 12 races, he's been in the money in 10 of those 12. He has 2 poor performances. One of them was in the Derby, an easy toss. And like the second half of last year, he was really good.
Yeah.
He shows up all the time. Like, I don't really have very many knocks on him in this race. I would not be shocked if he won the race at all. Like, I think it could set up for him. I don't love him. I'm not going to be playing him in Stable Duel or anything. And I think there are far more intriguing prospects, because if you kind of take him out of this race and you just played the race like it was everybody else but him, it opens it up so much more.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Right?
The second you toss him, which I did too,
everybody else
makes
like
sense.
They can all compete with each other.
Yeah.
Like, nobody feels like they're really overmatched. It's just like, if he does show up with his absolute A+ performance, it probably wins.
Yeah.
It probably wins. He's a little bit better than
he is, but he also is a horse that, I don't know, that BC Mile performance, just like getting beat by Cody's Wish.
He had every chance.
He had every chance to win that race.
Perfect trip that
and
race.
He got a perfect trip. And Cody's Wish going 2 turns is usually not that horse's MO. And I just that's what kind of sticks in the back of my head. And I'm like, coming up a little short. And the Pennsylvania Derby wasn't great. The Travers obviously was, it got beat by Epicenter. No harm in that, but still faded.
And the difference between now versus like the last couple, now we're going to be talking about a horse who's 2-1, right?
Right.
He's going to be the horse we're trying to beat, really, for the first time in his last 4 or 5 races. It's a totally different perspective now.
And from a Stable Duel standpoint, do you want to spend $8,500 on a horse where you have a lot of question marks and where there's this big of a field and where there's this many other viable potential candidates? Like, I certainly don't. Yeah.
No. So where do you go, or who are a couple horses that you would be looking at, and how do you see this race unfolding?
So it's interesting. My top pick is Defunded, the Baffert horse. I think Bob is going to have this horse ready to roll. I think Bob, on big days like this, sometimes likes to come east and give the double middle fingers and do that. It's the kind of thing.
In knowing the I don't know him very well. I've interviewed him sometimes when I was at TVG and stuff. I've had some conversations, and just in knowing him and some of the people close to him too.
Yeah.
He's someone who just like you said, like, he likes to come out and put on a show.
Yeah.
Put on a show.
Yeah.
And you can tell with horses that he likes, if they don't run a good race, he likes to bring them back and run a good race. This is a horse who, for a while, he would keep mentioning, and there were like 2 or 3 races there that were like, that doesn't make sense. And then he bounced back in the Awesome Again and the Native Diver. I think I played him both times in the San Diego and Pat O'Brien, like thinking those were going to be the races, and then got off of them in the Awesome Again.
And that's the thing, is this horse now is coming off back-to-back graded stakes wins at a mile and an eighth. Uh, that's one of them over Country Grammar, who we saw come back and win a big graded stakes race after that. And I just, again, I think Bob's going to have this horse cranked. And the other part is, I don't really know how much speed there is in this race. And I think there's a lot of fake speed to some extent. So riding with Biden, the number 3, I hate to break it to you folks, he's not that fast.
Yeah.
I've seen that horse at Parks. He's got good park speed if he's going 1.5 miles. But I mean, let's not make this horse out into something he's not. Art Collector. I love Art Collector.
He's like a
Art Collector.
Yeah, it's a little different.
When he gets out to the front end, he slows it way down.
And Barry was mentioning this too, so I want to give him. It's like he's like fast but not quick.
Correct.
Right.
Absolutely correct. And
he gets to a nice control. Like once he gets out front, and then he gets controlling, and then he can kind of get on his own like gait, his own stride. But I don't think he's going to try to out quick you in a race. Like if it's you and him and you look over, I don't think he's going to try to beat you.
No, he's not. And the other thing is, if you look at a race for when the last time he's won from actually legitimately off the pace was like November of 2019. I mean, he just doesn't really win off the pace like that.
Yeah.
Because
that was right before he was heading into the Kentucky Derby, right around that time when he was going to head into the Derby, and he didn't run the Derby, but because I remember going, oh yeah, he could probably come from off the pace, but then since then he's become a lot more like one-dimensional.
Much more one-dimensional. And then you have Stiletto Boy, who's probably going to want to be forwardly placed, but is stuck all the way out in post position 11.
Yep.
How much is he going to be able to get over? Again, Stiletto Boy's a horse that's more fast than quick to some extent. And so I just think Defunded's going to get out there. And I think Irad aboard knows exactly what he did last year with Life is Good. Get out there and go. Now, that's not to say that Defunded is as good as Life is Good, but he knows if he can get out there on a lone speed on a dirt route at Gulfstream Park on a big day, that's usually a winning formula. So Defunded at 6-1 for only $5,000. I don't think this horse runs a bad race. I think this horse runs really, really well. So that was ultimately my top pick in this one.
Yeah, and he's kind of an interesting horse when you look at just the trajectory of his career. He doesn't really have many bad races in there. Honestly,
not many. No. It was that 2 that you bet on him in.
Yeah, you're right. That was an anchor. It's a lot of weight. Honestly, it is. It's a ton of weight. But
that was something I remember Bob mentioned that Defunded does not like the paddock at Del Mar.
Yeah.
That he becomes a totally different creature, that he gets all worked up, that he gets lathered up when he's at the paddock at Del Mar, and he gets back to Santa Anita and he's like a completely different horse. Super calm, super chill. So that may be something to pay attention to. How does he react to the paddock at Gulfstream Park, when they're walking around getting him prepped? That's something maybe to pay attention to on the day of the race.
Yeah, because this horse, after they won and they broke their maiden with him, they threw him in the Santa Anita Derby right away. He was behind Rock Your World and Medina Spirit and Dream Shake. Then they went in the Pat Day Mile, and he was only 4th behind Jackie's Warrior in that race. Like, he didn't run poorly in that race either. Again, we're in back-to-back graded stakes races. Doesn't run badly in either one of those races where he's second in both of them. Then he gets that big confidence-building win finally to put it all together, and then he's off from August to 2021.
Yeah, then he's switching barns and
barns. This is when Baffert was suspended for a little while. He runs well in both of these races. And then, as you said, he didn't like Del Mar. He didn't really like it down there. If you just eliminate that month period at Del Mar in his career, it's a pretty solid career overall for Defunded. Irad jumps aboard. He will be a major player in here. I'm going to mention another horse that came from Southern California that I think at a big price you can throw in. That's Get Her Number. I don't know if Get Her Number is as good as maybe some of the best horses in this race on their best day, but right now he's in good form and he could get a pretty good trip in this race. My main concern is the 1 1/8. I don't know if that's really where he's best, but I think he can get it. And he was right on the wire with Mind Control. And Mind Control, I think, is one of the more underrated horses of the last few years. Mind Control earned over $2 million, $2.1 million. He was a 12-time winner. And Mind Control ran some of his best races at the end of his career.
Yeah.
Just speed figure standpoint, look at some of his biggest races. They came towards the end. So I don't think losing to Mind Control is any issue whatsoever. He actually outfinished White Abario in that race also. And he it was a good effort. He sat third. He was just outside of White Barrio. He made a 4-wide move at the top of the lane, and he just lost a photo to mind control.
Yeah.
And now he's going to make the third start off the bench, third start of his form cycle. His last, honestly, really since the beginning of, since he came back to the races in March of 2022, he has 2 bad races. One of them was when he drew post 13 going a mile on the turf at Golden Gate, where nobody could work out a trip at post. Like, good luck there.
Yeah, really.
And then he has the one bad race in the Pat O'Brien where he's actually kind of in some trouble there.
Yeah.
And other than that, he's got a string of really nice races, like on the turf, in the Triple Bend. He's behind American Theorem a couple times, who got really sharp last year. And then he beats Ginobili, comes back out of that race and runs well. Like, that's a nice older horse. So I think he fits pretty well, Matt. My main question mark is the mile and an eighth, but that's built into his price. He's 15-1. So with horses like this, it's never going to be perfect. They're always going to have something,
or else they wouldn't be 15-1,
right? Exactly. So $500 for me in the stable duel lineup on Get Her Number on what is an awesome card. And compared just to last year, you know, where we had quality horses, but we had chalk. The Pegasus card was chalky,
all chalk,
all like last year. And it's tough, like, for, you know, it's tough as horse players to get excited on a day like that, because we get to see really great performances, but when a lot of us are losing money, or we're like, you know, okay, we're trying to beat at least one or two of these favorites here and there, it won't be that kind of day this Saturday.
It won't be. I completely agree. It won't be that type of day. It's a much more even field. There's a lot of very good horses. There may not be a lot of great horses, and that leads to better betting races for all of us. And what I'll say is, I think the Pegasus World Cup is the epitome of that, in that last year you had Knicks Go Life is Good. I mean, 2 superstars going at it, horse of the year and kind of the up and coming potential horse of the year. And, you know, but you look beyond that, it was Stiletto Boy finished third. And then who? It was Sir Winston. I mean, there just wasn't much depth in that field. Whereas this, I think you could make a legitimate case. We didn't even talk about a horse like Skippy Longstocking that I think might actually set a really nice trip. You know, there's a lot of good horses in this race that you can make like legit arguments
talk
for.
about it. Proxy is a grade 1 winner. Simplification is a grade 2 winner. Simplification was in the Derby, Preakness last year, and in a bunch of big races, ran in the Breeders' Cup. Riding with Biden's kind of a long shot, but this is like an acid test for a horse who's been good at their local track, and they come and take a big swing. White Barrio is a grade 1 winner. Your Florida Derby winner. Defunded is a grade 1 winner. Awesome Again winner. Art Collector is a grade 1 winner, won the Woodward back in 2021, multiple graded stakes winner. Skippy Longstocking was third in the Belmont, grade 1 placed, and is also a graded stakes winner, multiple graded stakes winner. Get Her Number is actually a grade 1 winner, won the American Pharoah at 2. Last Samurai is a grade 2 winner, right? Won the Oaklawn Handicap last year at 12-1 and has been in some big races. Cyberknife, who's a multiple grade 1 winner, won the Haskell and the Arkansas Derby. Stiletto Boy is a grade 2 winner and multiple grade 1 placed, has been in a ton of big races against Medina Spirit, against Knicks Go, Flightline, Life is Good, Country Grammar, some of the absolute best horses in training over the last couple years. And then you have a wild card like O'Connor, who is a group stakes winner, group 1 winner. And I mean, it's for not having a Life is Good or a Knicks Go. I mean, it's a pretty good group of older horses that are all accomplished. I just went through their resume right there.
Yeah, no, it's an accomplished group. It's an even group. Like you said, there's nobody is that heads and shoulders above anybody else. And, you know, everybody's, you know, group 1 placed at least. And, you know, or most cases, group 1 placed and, or grade 1, I should say. And then, I just think that this one's wide open. And, again, kind of like what we were talking about with the previous race, I just won't want to spend up $8,500 on Stable Duel for a 5-2 horse like Cyberknife, when I think this one's wide open and you can get a lot of value, whether it's a horse like Get Her Number a horse like, I think Simplification has a shot to run underneath in this
Absolutely.
spot,
Yeah.
and because that's kind of what Simplification likes to do, is like finish third or fourth. And for $500, if you get a third or fourth place finish, like that's not the worst thing in the world. And that's
He
what I
likes
mean about like,
Gulfstream. He always
yeah,
runs well here.
that's what I mean about doubling up too. Like if this is one where you're like, I'll go with Get Her Number or Simplification, and I'll go with like Defund It or something like that. Like, okay, great. Like maybe you get the winner and the third place horse, and you get like 89 points as a result of that in a stable duel. So there's a lot of strategy you can get into with this, but a great betting card and a great stable duel card.
Yeah, no, we hope that we've helped you out a little bit. Matt also has a full capping the card out there on the
Yes.
Gulfstream Park card, right? If folks want to follow along with Matt on social media, give him a follow on Twitter. You can get all that great content that Matt has out there. Our buddy Barry Spears, who's always on this stream with us. If you're a fan of Barry and you want to get some of his thoughts, he joined me. We spent about 45 minutes looking at races 10, 11, 12, 13. So we did some handicapping also that you just saw here. And that's on social media if you want to check that out, as we have a really fun weekend coming up. So much action. And I actually already, Matt, because the entries came out early, like you can already put your stable duel lineups together for the
Yes.
big contest at Gulfstream Park. I wanted to do that last night just to put one in, just to
Yeah.
kind of see
Yep.
what some of my plays, how I would be sitting.
It's funny.
Right?
You and I did the same thing. I didn't submit them, but I built two different stables, and I built one starting from race 1 and kind of going that way, and I
Yep.
built the other starting at race 13
13
and
and
kind of
going
going that
backwards.
way.
Yeah.
And because you end up making some slightly different decisions because you're like, where am I gonna? And it's I always think that's a fun experiment just to see kind of how you end up putting together maybe slightly different stables or variations of a stable. So
Yep.
I've already been playing around with that. The nice news is there's so much value that there's like, God, I can pick like 6 different horses here. It's
And if
great.
that's the case,
So,
throw, it's only $50 to enter. Throw
yeah,
a couple entries in.
yeah,
I'm going to put in at least 2, probably 3,
yep,
like you said, I think you put in 4, put a couple $100 worth of entries
yep,
in, but you're playing in a big prize pool. You've already capped all of these races. So it's going to be the biggest pool we played into for stable duel in quite some time, the
yep,
first big one of the year. And
yep.
we'll be taking big swings at it. So anyone out there who needs any help, if you have any questions ever about stable duel strategy, what is it? What am I trying to do? Or if you're looking for like a sounding board to bounce a couple ideas off, I love to chat with you anytime. Reach out to me. I know Matt would too.
Yep,
We're
absolutely.
very willing to help anyone. We love playing this game, but we really like working with the folks at Stable Duel. So we always like to help promote this game too, because it's a lot of fun, and it's something that's entertained me and made me some money through the years. So I know a lot of the people that are following us and that are watching shows like this, you would love to play Stable Duel if you haven't played it before. So this is a perfect weekend to take a chance. Big Stable Duel game on Saturday for the Pegasus card. Maddie, thank you so much again for helping out a little early this weekend.
Absolutely.
I have an appointment coming up in just a bit, so it made things easier for me.
Sure thing.
And hopefully our buddy Barry Spears has a fantastic weekend. Good luck to
Yes.
Barry out there live at Gulfstream Park. Thanks so much to everyone for hanging out with us. Good luck to Jake. Jake, good luck to you in all of your plays this weekend. Thanks for giffing and memeing along with the live stream. And Matt, what do we got? The Southwest this weekend for the big Trust the Profits.
Oh yeah, for the Trust Profits
right?
contest.
Did you
yeah,
have any
Southwest.
like quick thought? I know we're not going to talk about that race. Did you have like a strong opinion on that at all, or have you even looked?
I think Arabia. Yeah, I did look. Actually, I have a stakes preview out. If you want to check that out, if you follow me on Twitter, you can find it. But Arabian Night, I think, is the horse that's going to win that race. But I do think Red Route 1 at 10-1 for Steve Asmussen is a horse
that's
I
who I
really
bet.
like a lot. Yeah,
I threw 100 to win on that one.
Yep. When all else fails, bet Gunrunner.
Yep.
And I just think that horse is going to have some pace to run at, and has run into some trouble in some previous spots, but run against very, very good competition. So 10-1 on the morning line. That was one where I kind of did a double take when I saw the morning line on Red Route 1. So
yeah, if we can get 6,
I'll be thrilled. Yeah,
I'll be okay.
happy with that. Yeah,
because I think that the way the race shapes up, that looks like the true closer that could be picking up pieces if they go too quick, right? Like if Arabian Lion gets beat, it's probably because the others go fast but Baffert's had so much success at Oaklawn with horses like this through the years.
He has. And I'm not the biggest believer in hit show. And it's kind of interesting that Cox has 3 horses in that race, but Florent Giroux is in Gulfstream.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting jockey shuffle because he's got Pratt on Corona Bolt. He's got Joe Talamo on Jace's Road, and he's got Manny Franco on Hit Show.
Different
and
faces.
I'm like, like, how do you read the tea leaves? I read it as he thinks Corona Bolt's the best of the 3.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Corona Bolt might just get pressured a little too much up front, stretching out for the first time. So that's why Red Route 1, I think, makes a lot of sense.
Maddie, good luck to you this weekend.
Absolutely.
Good luck to everyone this weekend. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. We'll be back here next week on Friday at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. Barry will be back with us, and it'll be a lot of Gulfstream, a lot of Santa Anita for the next couple months as we lead into the big Kentucky Derby prep races. Big Gulfstream Park card this weekend for the Pegasus. As we finish up, we say hello to our good friend, Joey Cleveland. Take it away, Joey.
Better, you want to spread your pony